Okay, here we are. Freaking YouTube and Starlink. I think Starlink is, I don't know. It wouldn't let me start it. The link was right in front of me and YouTube wouldn't let me activate it. So they just do whatever at their whim. I set it up at like 7:45 this morning. But if YouTube says let's not do it, then we don't do it. So I had to actually edit it. I couldn't just go in and click go live. I had to edit it to 8:45 start time, and then it let me go live. I don't know. The things they do are just ridiculous. It's like we have the advancement to make things really user friendly, but instead they don't. I mean, it's not like it's 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Anyway, so yeah, I'm frustrated. And I'm pretty sure my microphone isn't working again, just like yesterday. Because why allow an external microphone in this day and age when I've got a MacBook? That's sarcasm. All right, I got to cool off. I've had my coffee, so that also means I'm a little bit tense. Too much coffee. Hey, Chris. Good morning, Chris James. Good morning, Royce and Jennifer. Well, there's a few of us. Anyway. Oh, also, it's windy. I'm grumpy when it's windy. I have no reason to be because life is so good, but I get grumpy anyway. Because it does things like blows my door and knocks things over. This morning I woke up and everything was falling over. But anyway. See, that's the worst of it out here. Otherwise, my life is pretty stinking good. So even if I'm irritated. Today I moved the Starlink further out than I've ever moved it before. I've had it down there or right by the trailer, but today I moved it 5 feet away. So how about that? We'll see how that helps with our broadcast. Walk down here amongst the area I've cleared, and you know what? It's so nice to be barefoot again. Oh shoot, the wind might make it hard to hear me. Anyway, it's nice to be barefoot once more. I went barefoot like a week ago. I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's hard to know these days. Time moves so fast, and I realized, oh, this is an odd feeling. It felt good. Let's see if I can turn this around. Oh yeah, here's how I can do it. So anyway, I'm walking down to the creek because I've got the internet broadcasting. So we'll see if we can make it. So I want to show you guys the creek. The creek has slowed down quite a bit, but it's sure nice when it's there. Honestly, I like it when it's at this level, because when it was at its highest, it's all I could hear. Some people love being by a creek, and I enjoy it, but I actually enjoy the peace and quiet or just the birds singing. That's my favorite. I certainly wouldn't complain if it was rushing constantly, though, because if I had a year-round creek here, that would just be amazing. But it also would have made my property 10 times more expensive, as that's the nature of water. Whew. Unless you're buying property, then people think water isn't valuable at all, which is what I'm dealing with. Anyway, I'll quit complaining. All right. Stop complaining, Harleman. I might have a buyer for my property. I'm pretty excited about that. Because I'm not hiding anything. Just make it look nicer. I don't like modern stuff. But it's hard to beat those plastic bottles for my heavy whipping cream. Doesn't really make sense to transfer it into a different bottle, even though I'd like to. So anyway, I posted a meme I'm pretty proud of. That's on Facebook. That's the only place you'll see that stuff. Or on this channel. But I'm not going to post memes on here, most likely. Actually, now that I say that, maybe I will. On the other hand, it could get me in trouble with YouTube. Anyway, there, you see that? It wasn't an earthquake. It was a wind quake. I just coined a new term. I can't believe that the Starlink hasn't fallen off that ladder. As that ladder blows over, it blew over last night. I can't believe it. I think they got the aerodynamics down to avoid wind. I kind of wonder if that was intentional in the design, because it didn't blow over before, like yesterday either, when I had it right out there in the wind. Anyway, so we just suffered a minor wind quake. Nothing fell off the walls. Everything's okay. The house ain't gonna blow over. Anyway, it was pretty dang windy last night, and then in the morning it was nice and calm. But anyway, weather's a big deal out here. You know, it affects how I live. It's a big part of my life. So anyway, hey, Stanley York, good morning. I just finished my coffee, y'all, but cheers anyway. I can't drink anymore because in the springtime, it's like I don't need coffee. I don't know. Maybe it's because of a jolt of sunshine and I get a lot more energy. And then the coffee overdoes it. So I really got to shape this hat. It's annoying to look at. I'll just put on my good hat. I mean, that's a good hat, but I just got to shape that brim. That's so annoying. So anyway, finally got on my horse again yesterday. I got to do that every day because she's kind of a stinker, because I haven't ridden her since August. I've only ridden her twice since August. So I got on her, and she's never bucked with me, but the first time I got on her, she tried to buck. And then yesterday she was just such a stinker. So, but not only have I not been riding her, I haven't been spending any really much time with her except moving her from pen to pen and a few walks that I went on. But so in other words, I got to tell her that when I'm around, we do what I want to do. So I got to spend a few days doing that, letting her know that when I'm on her back, we're riding, because she was having a hard time with that. She kept wanting to turn around and go home. But anyway, so yeah, springtime. And now tonight, it was a long, dark morning, but it's going to be a long, bright night. And I'm excited about that. Get more things done. Don't have to start getting ready for bed at 5 o'clock when it gets dark. So pretty excited for the change in time. And I wish they'd just leave it this way year round, for crying out loud. We don't need to be doing that. Of course, you guys down in Arizona, you don't go through the time changes, and you're lucky. Stupid political world. Anyway, I won't get back on ranting. So peaceful and nice. Makes you wonder why people do the things they do, ruining this world for us. And it's particularly bad right now, creating a war with Iran, other things coming to light. It's like, why? And I mean, I think the answer is simple. Greed for money and power. Greed for money, lust for power. I look out here and it's just so nice. I also like it when it's warm enough that I can keep the door open. 'Cause that's my only window right now. And it's just a nice. That's why I bought my initial property out here, was to be able to enjoy the view looking over the city. You get out here, a place like this, and you wonder why in the world are people needing to cause chaos. Anybody read that book, Chaos? Speaking of, I thought about getting it. So anyway, it's nice to hear the birds. Hear the birds, have water flowing, and horses to one day ride. If you don't have horses, if I could do it over, I'd just buy a razor, Polaris razor. But I don't know. I'm kind of committed to having these horses now. That little creek, I think, has stopped flowing. That goes down and joins the creek and flows. I don't remember where it goes. I think it eventually connects into the Altanum Creek, and that flows to the Yakima River, and that, of course, flows to the Columbia River. So I could put a little rubber ducky in the creek over here and send it to the ocean. No, it would definitely get hung up on rocks along the way. Otherwise, I could write a note to a gal in China or Philippines. Anyway, that's not why we're here. So I've always been anti-debate because communication's a big deal for me. And I think if you think about all the division that they're sowing in our nation, if you think about it, a lot of it happens. It's so easy to do because people aren't able to communicate. And I know I don't even have to give any examples because y'all know that's very true. I post something. Some guy called me a child trying to think like an adult, which is fine. You can say that all you want, but you got to back it up. So in the discussion, he went on to just insult me and do a very blatant straw man, as I gave example and explanation as to why I held my view. It was my post about the Laura Ingalls series coming up, which is going to be garbage, you can already tell, and it infuriates me. First off, because I love the Laura Ingalls story. Second off, because it's a Western, and Hollywood only does garbage on both of those. And so, of course, the guy had nothing to say and went on to demonstrate what it actually looks like to be a child trying to think like an adult. As again, all he had was a straw man of what my argument was. He never asked what my argument was, and I hadn't presented it. So he didn't even have the necessary criteria to assess whether it was a straw man or not. And anyway, I don't even need to give examples. We all know that people can't communicate and we see it online. I mean, even before the internet, one of the main cultural sayings was never discuss politics or religion. And basically, the two most important subjects in a person's life, and we're not supposed to talk about it. So that tells you anything. Another one is in America, don't do business with family. Man, I learned that the hard way. But you go to other countries, and particularly Muslims. I saw this in South Africa. The Muslims, they were actually really good to get along with. That's why when people say that Muslim is a religion of peace, I don't necessarily disagree, because in other countries you can see there are different levels. All that we see in America are the hostile, angry ones, and the ones that hate America and all that. And there's certainly too many of them. But I've also seen the peaceful side. They were very, even though we were Christian, I was in South Africa, working at a orphanage that was religion based, and the Muslims didn't care. They were still very good to us business wise. They let us buy things on credit, and they told us they appreciate what we're doing and stuff like that. And they were all family. Like, they had their extended family. Everybody was family working for them. They're very successful business wise. And I came back to America, became a realtor, tried to do business with family, and I learned the hard way, and friends. And that's not because I was wrong. I mean, you could argue that. And in a sense, I was wrong. But is it really me wrong, or is our society wrong when we have sayings of don't talk politics, religion, don't do business with family? Because when you see other places in the world where they successfully, or to generalize, I know that triggers a lot of people, but I see Mexicans working with family businesses, and they succeed. And I see Asians doing it a lot, and they succeed. So it's just, how did our white culture go that way? So am I wrong, or did our culture slip away? In my opinion, our culture slipped away. So anyway, why was I talking about that? Oh yeah, communication. Communication. Let's go to a couple comments here real quick though, because I was talking about horses, and Stanley, he makes the point of why to go with horses instead of a Polaris RZR or a Jeep or a Toyota, because horses are good for the soul, and that's true. Just being around them and being on them, it just feels good. There's something called horse fever, that I call horse fever. When you got horses and you're not on them for a while, you just get that longing to be on a horse. Hey, good morning, Dead Wolf Resistance. Same thing with all the different factions of Christianity. Yeah, Christianity, I believe we can say Christianity is to blame, because even though Christianity wasn't officially a national religion, it was unofficially a national religion. I mean, most of our political ethics are based off of the Bible, even if they were deists, and some of them weren't even Christian. A lot of them were. And some of the states actually had official religions of Christianity. And even up until 2001, for those of you who are old enough to remember, when 9/11 attacked, when that attack happened, what happened? All of a sudden, the churches were full. Suddenly, I mean, Christian churches. That's what the default was. Even if you could say that, well, that doesn't mean people were Christian. It just means that the unofficial religion of America is in a sense Christianity. It was. I think 2001 was the end of that. I think a lot of people went to churches, but the churches, they just weren't equipped for it. And people people saw that and quickly, just as quickly, stopped going. And remember, I'm generalizing. I know there's some really cool churches out there. There's some really great people in churches, and so I'm generalizing that blanket statement for the most part across the nation. And anyway, so that's why I say Christianity dropped to the ball. We were holding the ball since the beginning of the nation. we and but little by little, let little things slip in. Not being able to discuss, getting fractured, not being able to work with family, putting money. That's what's disenchanting about the Old West. Like, I still love the Old West. It's one of my favorite times in the history. However, early Bronze Age is my other favorite time in history, but that's more for study. And but it's disenchanting the more I read about Old West history. Actually, at this point, I'm already aware of it, that pretty much everybody out west was out there to make a quick buck. Like, you get into it, the romance of the West from the movies and the stories, and you think that everybody went out west for a freer life, and they did, but it was all money grounded. And you have to make money as a family, but I mean, as I live this lifestyle, I've realized just how easy it is to live. All you need is clean water, shelter from the weather, food, and firewood, depending on where you are. And that's it. But when you read these stories, it wasn't about getting by, it was about getting rich. Because there's a lot of people getting rich. The cattle industry was the one that I focus on, but people running saloons, running gambling halls, running whorehouses, everybody was making money, and it went up and down. Of course, there were highs and lows throughout the time, but anyway, that's what you find out, is that most of it was motivated by money. Like I first got into fur trade era. The mountain men, the trappers, and those guys, they really did love the wilderness and the survival. But a lot of them, I mean, I think most of them, when the beaver felt industry tanked and prices went down, and suddenly the beaver trade was diminished to a fraction of what it was and not bringing the prices it was bringing, most of them went to town. Most of them went to farming. It's like, why in the world wouldn't you just stay up in the mountains? And we're still talking 1840s, 1850s that they were living. But they were in it for the money. And it was difficult for some because they didn't like changing their way of life. Like Joe Meek describes that really well. He was a good example of it. Anyway, Christianity never should have got caught up in all the money stuff. Like, if you look at it now, it's really just a church of consumerism. For the most part, there's exceptions out there. There's some really good people, and that are exceptions. But as in the big picture, Dead Wolf's commenting, families should be able to work together. Yeah, they should. I'll always try to get along with the new age type of Christians who are not judgmental. The money system. Yeah. The money system. Not that communism is better. Communism's worse. And so is socialism. Yep. That's it right there. Dead Wolf says, what if we could just produce shelter, fuel, food for each other? And all my thinking of this, for the past 10 years, learning how to do it and thinking about like a society-wide change. Like I have in my mind, I've got a vision of houses with doors taken off, windows removed, and trees growing up through them, birds living in them, deer running in and out of them because they've all been abandoned, and all the pavement jackhammered except for the essential roads because we keep some businesses. And then we all live together. And there's this research that was done that like 125 or 150 is the optimum number of humans, because beyond that you can't have meaningful relationships. And once you bring in that dynamic where there's people that are strangers, it really alters the psyche, which is the development of civilization. Most people think of civilization as the I guess it would be an adjective, like an insult or a superiority thing, which is very true about civilization. But they immediately go there with their mind, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about civilization by definition. What was it? I think it was like 40 acres and a few hundred people all living together within 400 acres and having a writing system for records and maybe a tax system. But anyway, there's criteria for what civilization technically is. And before that, and we also see it as mostly true with most of the tribes here in the United States, is that they would have tribes that didn't really exceed a certain number, but then they had other tribes that they interacted with. And I believe that sometimes you could even, especially from marriage, but sometimes you might even, like a warrior might choose to go join a different tribe. But basically, the tribal system I believe that the research done shows that that also proves that it's the optimum number, that just naturally it's what humans gravitate toward. Also, the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox, what we call Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, they do that same thing as what I was told by one of their priests, that they're not like Protestantism, where it's all a race to get the biggest church in town and compete for numbers like that. When I was a Protestant, that was like a big issue, is how do we get more people? It's always about growth, and almost always. And so it was neat to hear about the Greek Orthodox Church, which I'm not a fan of, but there's things about it that I really like. And he told me, yeah, I think 125 was their number, that once a church gets to 125, they have a priest in mind, I believe. They prepare for it, and then he starts building a community outside to take the newcomers or take part of the existing church away so that there's more room. And I really admire that. Hey, Deadwolf, if you're Googling, or you've heard it, if anybody's Googling and wants to see what Orthodox Church maximum size is, it'd be interesting. But anyway, so that's the difference of civilization versus tribal. And we experience it on Facebook too. That's a new revolution where it's weird. Like I get regular interactions with people, and I recognize names and faces of, man, I would think 1,000 people, but I have a unique brain, abnormal, not completely rare. Not saying that, but it'd be interesting to know more about how people handle Facebook, and I think it messes up people's minds. I've got a friend who quit. He's very analytical, and he analyzes how his brain responds to things, and how if he gets on social media in the morning, it ruins his brain all day long. And I don't think he's so rare. I suspect he's fairly normal, but he's unique in that he's able to recognize it. And I think that most of us people on social media don't realize what it's doing to our brain. And it's because naturally we do kind of have that number where there's enough faces that we get to meet other people. And then we have extended people that are family and friends that we don't know as well. And I think that's how we're geared naturally. So then civilization comes along, and it's all about building and having power. And I'm talking 3000 BC, 4000 BC, and there's fights between the kings of the city and the people who live out in the country who raise the food. Because when you raise food, all you have to do is herd your animals away from the city and tell that king to screw himself unless he pays you twice as much, or you're going to go sell to the other king. I mean, you have that freedom. So that's why in the earliest records of civilization, there is an account of that where the king and the herdsmen, the food producers, were at odds because it threatened the security of the king. Because without food, the city's dependent on the rural people. And now, a little sidetrack, where does that sound familiar? All these people who hate MAGA and who hate right wingers, it's okay to hate them, but just understand that that was hating rural people is not an organic movement. It was pushed on people because the people in power, they need to control food production. And that's what rural people are. They're also the independent minded white people because they live outside of town. They think for themselves. They shoot straight. They hunt. They can survive. And so if you're looking to create 15-minute cities or whatever it's called, if you're looking to get everybody connected to the power grid so that you can shut them down if they don't obey, well, who do you target? The country people. But you can't just go out and target them like Stalin did, or who was that? Was it Stalin that killed millions of farmers in Russia? You can't just outright do that because we're a republic democracy. So instead, you stir up the populace, you stir up the city people and tell them, hey, all those people out there are a threat to your livelihood. And then you release predators out into the wilderness because that makes it tougher to survive out there. And it takes away the game because if there's no hunting available, then we're all committed to the food system. So that has been going on for thousands of years. And that's why we need to really assess why are these popular narratives so popular? It's not because we really think it. I mean, just doing comedy was so revealing of that. Because in the comedy scene, most of the comedians and the people running comedy shows are a bunch of woke minded individuals. And, but the irony is, once you get outside of the big cities, most of the audience are rural people or small town people. And I found that to be mostly true. There's exceptions, like obviously in Seattle, you're going to get, in Portland, you're going to get a lot of woke audience. Some people hate that term woke, but prove me that it's wrong. And in Bend, Oregon, most of the audience was, you say the wrong thing. You just use a word. You don't even have to, you just use the word and they just attack you. But then I would see, I'd go to all these shows outside of town because that's where most of the comedy shows are. And they're mostly conservative minded. And the comedians are left minded. And yet the conservatives are all friendly. They laugh at most of the jokes. I mean, some of them, they don't laugh, but they're friendly. They talk to the comedian afterward. They buy his merch. And it's all just a good time. But you reverse that. I did pretty well because my jokes weren't like Trump jokes, both sides laughed at it, and that's something I kind of pride myself on, is I can make political jokes that are just jokes and both sides laugh. I have controversial jokes, but I didn't put them in my set because I wanted to be able to go anywhere. But when I did have a problem, it was these crowds that are all leftists. They get angry, they'd glare at me and just be downright rude. And so anyway, I'm not trying to sidetrack too far, but anyway, that's why that was a really, I think it was a very significant experience that shows the right wingers aren't hateful like people are making them out to be, or that they're all racists, that they all hate, that they don't want trans people to exist. That's one of the dumbest things. Right wing people just want people to do what they want and leave them alone. So, sure, some of them have some racism, but they're not overtly where they're like they want to march on anything. They're just, some of them, not all of them, but some of them do. I can acknowledge that. They just want to be left alone. That's all. Anyway, and of course the South is different. I'm talking about my experiences from here to Texas. So anyway, looks like we're losing some viewers. I have no idea. Maybe it's just fluctuating. Anyway, wait till you get sick, not able to work anymore, and you don't have money to hand out. Your friends quit coming around. You don't see your family like you used to. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. And it's all by design. They've got this all, they've got us. We all know about this. They worked it to where both parents have to work just to get by. And it was pushed on the public. I'm old enough to remember when that transition happened. I mean, it was a little bit before I could remember also, but primarily in the 70s, where they're really pushing to get women in the workforce because, hey, look at how much more money you guys can make. That's how it was all touted. And look at your independence that you'll have. And fast forward 40 years, and now all of a sudden things balanced out to where there's no excessive money. Now it's just working, both people working just to get by. I don't even need to tell you this. Everybody knows this. And it's by design. So they keep adding those stresses on us. Housing prices are through the roof. So just getting an apartment takes a lot more percentage of your income, and jobs are rare. And the more stress and strain you're under, the harder it is to get along with people. And that's why they don't want people living like me, where I've got a beautiful view outside, nice and peace and quiet, because it's not worth it to fight. My life is peaceful. I'm not under any strain and stress. So that's why it's so much more apparent when you leave society. It's like the frog jumping out of the water and realizing, wow, I was really close to the boiling point. Once you get out, because the frog in the water doesn't realize just how bad it is. I didn't realize it. I finally got out, but that was because I had always wanted to live this way since I was a teenager. And I kind of had an awakening when I went to Texas and realized I just got to do it. It's not going to be perfect. And the longer I wait, the older I'm getting. And I waited too long, but at least I got out when I did. And but it wasn't because the stress and the strain was so bad. It's because I had always wanted out. And then when I got out, then I realized, oh my goodness, all the lies of society. And like, that's why I stayed in it, because I thought I needed to make money to live this way. I thought I needed to make X amount of dollars, like, $5,000-$6,000 a month would have been plenty, so that then I could go live free. Little did I know, I could have started, man, I wish I would have done this when I was younger. I really wish. There was like 5 times where I was this close, once or twice where I started to do it and then backed out. Man, But I got a lot of things I kick myself for still, and that's not healthy. I need to get over that and be happy, but it just is, and I think it makes me a better writer. Writers aren't supposed to be happy-go-lucky people. Um, I sure you studied the Mouse Utopia study. That one was mind-blowing. Yeah, I've heard about it. I can't remember what the mouse one was. But I think I remember also where they did one, started giving them sugar or something. I don't know. Oh, thank you, Pat and Wolf. Appreciate that. Yeah, look at that. The likes are exceeding the viewers now. We're going through another windquake. I got to get under my desk till it blows by. But I can't believe that Starlink isn't falling to the ground. Last night that ladder blew over. Not with Starlink on it, just by itself. And yet with that, I kind of wonder, like I say, I think that might be why it's shaped as low as it is. Well, I think it's also about the best angle for catching the satellites. Maybe it's, I don't know. I'm just surprised. So anyway, all that to say, communication is what keeps us from is what keeps us down. In my opinion, that's like, because we all say, well, the problem is, and that's not wrong. I mean, most people usually, when they start out saying the problem is, they're usually right, except for the problem. If it would be more accurate, I think, to say a problem is, because we're all good at noticing one of the problems in society, and that's why I focus on what is at the core of the problem. What's at the core that keeps us having all of these problems? And of course, you can go deeper and deeper. I do believe in the Christian philosophy that all humans are flawed, versus those who believe in a utopia and communism. They believe that society is flawed, and that's the major philosophical differences there. That's why Stalin, I swear it was Stalin, not Lenin, went and killed millions of people, because the idea is you get rid of the bad people, and then all the good people can flourish. And that's exactly what we're dealing with these days. We've got people who believe if we can just get rid of all the racists, and if we can get rid of all the people who don't want trans people to exist, made up. I've never met any conservative that's like, I wish trans people would, what do they, unend themselves? That's the YouTube terminology. I've never met anybody like that. I've only met people that are like, just stop with the agenda. But they have to change it to that. They demonizing one side, and then saying if we could just get rid of them, then society would be nice again. Get rid of the capitalists, because they're just in it for money. You got to demonize all these people groups. And then that's the answer to your problem. When you believe in that people aren't inherently bad, which is philosophical difference. And that's what we're dealing with. In case people didn't notice, I have no idea how many people are aware of this, but that's why to get communism into power, a lot of leftists, you might be noticing, are now saying, no, we believe in gun ownership. And it's a communist tactic that you do a revolution. You don't bring communism in through peace. You bring it in through violence, because again, you got to get rid of all those people who think badly, so that they're out of the way, so that all the people who think properly, that think morally, can't be hampered down and controlled by all the evil people. That's why they're suddenly pro-gun, if you haven't noticed. It's not like 30 years ago, the leftists who weren't so staunchly communist. And so anyway, I adhere to the Christian philosophy that all people are bad, and it doesn't take a genius to know that that's true. You just talk to anybody for 30 minutes and you see they're acting out of fear, they're acting out of need, they're acting out of want, they're acting out of greed. I mean, it's just how we all are, and I'm not an exception. If you're honest with yourself, you know that you act out of insecurities, out of fear, out of want, and we're just flawed people. And now, why did I bring that up? Oh, yeah. For the because we all have. Well, the problem is, but like I say, I ask what the root of the problem is, and so to me, that would be the root of the problem is people. We're all flawed. But then the next question is a step up. Okay, well, what flaws are keeping us from being a peaceful and good society? Well, demonizing each other, and but I think it's communication. Those go hand in hand. So if we could start listening to other people's ideas and not holding on to our own ideas as the ultimate truth, but realizing truth is vast. And so I might have something right, but that doesn't mean it's completely right. Darn, what's an example? Here we go. I know how to cut firewood. I know how to start a fire, but I bet you there's a better way to do it. I'm totally fine to go out in the wilderness, probably any time of year. I don't know about the west side where everything's damp. I could maybe figure it out, but right now with my skill level, any time of year, I could go out and start a fire. Does that mean I know everything about starting fires or I'm using the best methods? No. There's still a lot that I could do better. But because it's adequate and it works, I stick with it. So now, if I were in a community of people camping, if I go in there thinking I know how to start a fire, I don't need to learn anymore, and there's another guy in there who knows something better than I do, I'm gonna not learn because I'm holding on to my truth and not letting any more truth in. Whereas if I go into it thinking, hey, I can make it happen, but I wonder if any of these guys know something I don't know. And I start watching, and hey, how would you be doing this? If I'm not starting the fire, watching the guy starting the fire, ask another guy, how would you do it? And learning, well, then I'm going to come out of there better than I was before. And that is my approach to all kinds of knowledge. So I already told you, I believe in the Christian ethic that all humans are imperfect, flawed, but I'm still learning. Like, how are we flawed? I think I've got enough evidence that I'm not going to change on that one. There's enough evidence, enough studies, enough just go out and watch, enough personal experience that it's not my surroundings that make me bad. It's that I just have a tendency toward not being the best I can be. But I can still learn about it. I can still learn more about the other people's views and why they hold it. And maybe it's not completely wrong. Maybe it has some truth to it. And so it balances my understanding of everything. Anyway, I'm trying to give you an example of how we could communicate better, to learn rather than to know. And this is my same beef with history. I left the Old West history groups on Facebook because This is my same approach to learning history. I just got sick of all the admin um, not supporting it. I just go in there and I see how we could be learning so much in those groups. Like, I can learn way more by being in a group of people than I can on my own, because I'll read something and think, oh, I just discovered something. And by myself, then I have a new fact. If I'm in a group of people that are also intelligent, well, then somebody might challenge me. Justin's not on here, but he and I have had some good discussions just this way, where I get a better knowledge by getting my ideas challenged. So when I see these Facebook groups, I think it's an incredible potential. Most people just complain about Facebook, and it is a problem, but it's not. Facebook isn't the problem. Well, there are some problems now with Facebook, the over marketing, advertising, but people could be making it incredible. It's us that makes it bad. And in these history groups, because people just go in, make a statement, no one challenges them. They don't defend themselves. They don't say, oh, well, this is why I'm thinking it. Do you see why? Is there any reason to think I'm wrong? No, you make a bold statement that's just dumb. And then if you get asked to defend it, well, the admin team up against you and everybody teams up against you. And that's why I leave. It's just so dumb. It's just dumb, like the definition of dumb. Not that the people are dumb, just what they're putting together is, there's some value. It's not like it's valueless, but anyway, I'm labeled a bad guy in all those communities, and so I just decided, why am I wasting my time? Because I can learn a lot by myself. Fortunately, I do challenge a lot of my ideas, so even though I'm not always right, I am pretty good about challenging my own ideas and not holding on to them as though I have learned and figured it out. So anyway, losing some people. Maybe there were some reenactors watching. They didn't like that. Anyway, so that's some examples. That's why to me that's like when you say the problem, I think that communication is a big part of it. And that communication is very involved, as I just described. It has to do with our worldview. Our worldview really affects how we communicate. And so that to me is why that's like one of the core problems is communicating. And anyway. Yeah, Stanley, you probably do. Yeah. My dad was older for a guy my age. My dad was born in 29, I think. He graduated in 1947. So I got to grow up hearing stories from him, and then my grandpa, of course. And it was just a better time. I mean, not everything, obviously, but much better time. So anyway, I wonder how many people are actually here, because my counter says there's only 2 people, but that would mean just Stanley and Dead Wolf Resistance are watching, which is fine. We'll keep doing these lives. I don't know if anybody's going to really listen to what I have to say in big numbers, because I watch YouTube almost all day, every day. I don't watch it, I listen to it. But I can't. I look at the thumbnails as I'm choosing which video to listen to, and start videos and then stop them because they're dumb. But it's just amazing how much lame stuff is on there, and pushing advertising and pushing not truly clickbait, but kind of gimmicky type stuff. And I would say that makes up like the majority of YouTube. But and I won't go that route. Like, I'm still gonna make my short videos, but I watched another one. Oh, yeah. This guy, he gave no details about his home. He just said it was just, really good videography. Everything was well lit. And he goes, walking into my cabin on my truck, and it was about a 30-foot wide cabin by 8 foot. And he was in the desert somewhere, and there was snow everywhere. It kind of looked like the Grand Canyon area, like at the outskirts of the Grand Canyon where it's not at its deepest, but that kind of terrain. And it was snowy, so it was very beautiful. And his cabin was lined with windows. On the very far end was about a queen-size bed, I think it was. And so just a first-person view video as he walked in. It was all, like I say, well lit. And he walks by, and here's his wood stove about this tall, that big, and it's got a nice fire going. Which, if you burn firewood, and I mean, hey, maybe I'm wrong, but the fire doesn't burn really nicely like that unless you just filled it up with thin firewood that maybe lasts 20 minutes before that fire is no longer at its peak picturesque potential. And we're talking, that thing was at least 25 feet, I would say. That was my guess, by 8. So with all the windows, totally lined with windows, which was beautiful, and that little fire, and we're supposed to believe that he's going to just sit and relax in there and be nice and warm when the whole walls are windows, and he's got that little fire. So I call BS, but he wasn't really answering in the comments, so I couldn't really find out much information. I didn't care to comment myself, but I get that kind of crap. When I get this thing finally remodeled, so it's really nice, I could put up some nice lighting and do a video like that, but it's just so phony. How big is your Kimberly wood stove, and what size firewood are you talking? For me, I'm all day long, I'm managing my fire. However, now that it's warmer, not getting in the 20s at night, I can pretty much shut it down. Well, especially in the daytime, but I'm doing better about closing it. I've got it pretty closed down right now because it's so dang warm. But through the night, in the evening, I can pretty much shut it down like this and keep it warm. With big firewood that burns, slower and lasts a lot longer. And then, of course, the kind of firewood you have makes a huge difference. Throw some elm or oak in there. And there's many a time I've woken up at night, shut the fireplace down, went to bed, and then only to wake up a few hours later and have to open the door and to cool off. But anyway, so I don't know. When I see that, I don't know why he wouldn't be. I use a wood stove because I love the old ways, and so maybe he just had that fire going for an aesthetic, and he had a generator going to keep a heater going. Diesel heaters really are the way to go. I finally got mine going, and for ease, a diesel heater is the best. And eventually I'm going to set this up with the diesel heater so that it can be more like a guest place, and then I don't have to worry about the wood stove. Also, I'd get a lot more space if I got that wood stove out of here and used a diesel heater instead. Diesel heater and cooking on propane. Man, if I did that, my life would be 25% easier, 30% easier, just by switching to the diesel heat and propane. The diesel heat, I estimate, would cost me a maximum of like $135 a month. But again, now that it's warmer, that's why the wood stove is nice. I can shut it down, and then if, like yesterday, it got cold in the afternoon, got cloudy and windy. It was kind of humid, and so I just stirred up the fire. So that's why this time of year I barely keep it going, but I can always get it going nice and easy. I guess I could do that with a diesel heater too, come to think of it. So there's no reason to use a wood stove when you calculate the cost of even getting firewood for free like I do. The cost of getting it, and the effort, and then of maintaining the chainsaw and cutting it, all the work. Granted, for my lifestyle, that's fine because I'm not super busy and I need to be active. So it's exercise. But if you didn't need that, if you didn't count that as a positive, by the time you do all that effort, you almost break even, I think, at paying for diesel to operate the diesel heater. I can heat with only firewood and stay warm in a -20 wind chill. Well, that has more to do with what kind of home you're living in. But yeah, the wood is fantastic. Wood fire. But this year I had some health issues with it as it was burning the soot that was building up. So I don't know if I did permanent damage to my brain or not. I hope not. Can't undo that. So I don't know. Next winter I might use diesel heat a whole lot more than I did this year. Well, I barely used it at all. I've only used it once. One time of having it set up. But anyway, well, this has been fun. Got any questions and comments? If not, today's my day to relax. Actually, I usually use Sundays to clean up and get organized, so it's time to sweep the floor again. And it's easy to bring stuff in because I live in a tiny space, as you all know, 7 by 14. It's easy to bring stuff in. It gets piled up. That's my socks and 3 kinds of footwear and my big bag of rice. Oh, look at that. The wind almost blew the door shut. Oh, let's go see if we're going to lose Starlink. I cannot believe that. I have no idea why that's staying up. I mean, it's got to be the aerodynamics of the way they got the dish built. Anyway, so over there, my three types of footwear, that's just what I wear. Anything I wear hurts my feet unless I go barefoot. So I've got my boots and my tennis shoes so I can alternate, and then my indoor slippers. So that's staying, but it's easy to bring in more footwear. And let's see. Actually, I think I emptied the cabin the other day. Anyway, it's easy to accumulate stuff, and then I go through and figure out what do I not need inside, and I take it out and sweep and I don't know, just get everything organized and cleaned up. It's so easy when you live small spaces and minimal to acquire stuff. Brad asks, did the time change? Also, Brad, now I mean this in the best way. You might have experienced some brain damage, but you're one of my favorite people, Brad. So that's a compliment. I would say the same thing about myself. Did the time change? Yes, it did. Out here in Washington. Yeah, I think it's just Arizona and what other state? There's another state I think that doesn't recognize the time change. And hey, Morning, Texas. Morning, Curtis from Texas. Time change got me. Yeah, this hat looks heavy. Not the 8 poster hat is lighter. I think you got a typo in there that's confusing me. Oh, there's a Dead Wolf comment that I missed. Small firewood. I have to feed it every hour. Oh, interesting. That's not too bad when it works. I run another tiny wood stove right next to the Kimberly. Okay, yeah, I remember you have 2 wood stoves. I have not enjoyed my time of using small wood stoves. I enjoyed it for cooking. That was just fine because I'm right there feeding it. But for heating, like in the teepee, it drove me nuts because it just kept constantly burning down if I wasn't watching it. But I was also burning mostly for small firewood. It was like Doug fir, and Doug fir cottonwood burns fast. Cottonwood burns nice and hot, but it burns fast. It's not like oak, where even if it was thin, it would still be burning slower. Yeah, Brad. Oh, Dead Wolf. Dead Wolf said, I don't know if I could get brain damage, not their damage. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe some brain damage would do me some good. Slow my brain down a little bit, maybe. Brad says, I've been using my phone, not my watch, and I got an extended weekend off, so I'm not paying attention. Yeah. Hey, that's a good way to live. You don't have to care what day or what time it is. Yep. Brad's got a good brain. That's why it's a compliment. If you don't fit into the norm these days, that means you're doing something right. Anyway, I got to connect the freezer. Also, these warmer temps. I've got some ice cream in there. After I got my tooth fixed, I bought some ice cream because the cold won't hurt it anymore. But it's barely staying frozen. The funny thing is, ice cream that's not melted and runny, but kind of soft, to me, it is so much more enjoyable than when it's really frozen. But anyway, that's what I gauge. Well, and also the meat thaws out. So I got to hook up the freezer. Hopefully the sun just got dim as I said that. I need the sun to run the freezer. Otherwise it drains the battery too fast. And so I need to do that. Oh yeah, and I got to cook some more dog meat today. A friend locally gave me a bag of rabbits that he had butchered. So I got to get those out and throw a couple in the pot. Maybe just one. When it's warmer in the daytime like this, I have to be more careful of how I cook. But now that I'm using a freezer, now that I think about it, I'm starting to save all my yogurt containers. This is good for your stomach. I got to rebuild my stomach biome, my gut biome. But anyway, I got to start putting, because usually when I cook the dog meat, I cook enough for a few days and I keep it in the shade. And as long as it's cool out, it doesn't go bad. And now that I'm using the freezer, I can start transferring it to those and living like a city person, really, is what it comes down to. But that's the thing. Living out here, you figure out a freezer just makes this lifestyle way easier. Metal pots, a freezer, LED lighting, solar power. I mean, that kind of stuff, it just makes I did no lighting for a long time where my phone flashlight was my only light. I did that for multiple years and I got by, but it made winter time difficult. But anyway, it's just those things that make life out here so much easier. Notice I didn't say running water. I mean, if I didn't have my well water coming out, I'm going to fill a barrel pretty soon. So it's easier to wash my hands and brush my teeth. Actually, brushing my teeth has been easy. I use my little my teapot. I warm it up so it's not cold. I don't have to do that now that my teeth is fixed. But while my tooth was broke, I got it lukewarm, just the right temperature. I brush my teeth with that. So running water ain't that big of a deal. But yeah, anyway, freezer makes life so much easier. Freezer over a fridge. Especially because when the freezer is turned off, I can put my refrigerator items in it, and then it's like a cooler, because it's full of ice, full of frozen stuff to keep it cold. But because it's not on, it doesn't freeze it. So anyway, I don't know. Those kinds of things make this life way easier. But I don't know. Even so, I was just talking to my brother about how when I go camping or when I'm in my van living, like out in the desert, I think to myself, my goodness, this is all I need. I don't need everything that I've got back at home. But then when I get back at home, I look around me and it's like, well, I do need that. I've got the space for it. And so we're kind of like fish filling up whichever living space we've got. I mean, like I say, when I go camping, put 50 pounds on my horse, I'm like, I could just live this way. I don't need all that other crap. But like I say, then I get home and it's like, well, I can't get rid of that. So we'll see how much more minimal I get. I've got a normal sized twin bed. I would like to cut that down to a 27-inch wide bed. They sell these mattresses that are a Japanese based thing where they're like 4 inches thick. And I want to get the 27-inch wide one. I don't move around a lot when I sleep. And that would make my whole footprint of living a lot smaller, or that would be one more step in making it smaller. Books are another one. It's hard to get rid of all my books. So I've got books building up. I've got a 55-gallon drum full of books, and then I've got a plastic tote full of books. I don't know. We'll see if I get rid of those. So anyway, let's read some comments here, then I think I'll get off. So if you want to keep it going, give me some comments if you want, questions. Otherwise, let's go through these. I got a nice camping fridge freezer run on 200 watts of solar and 2 marine batteries. Oh, nice. Yeah, it would be nice to switch to a 12-volt freezer. I was looking at 12-volt air conditioners. We'll see how well mine works. I got my rigid insulation, so I got to go dig a hole. I want to dig a hole like 4 foot by 4 foot, use my rigid insulation for the sides and the top, and then put my food in there. And then I need a rack so that if the ice sweats, it can drain. And then put the ice on top, freeze a gallon jugs of ice, put that on top and put my rigid insulation on, and it's all buried in a hole. Probably 3 layers of rigid insulation on the top, and see if that freezes better than my freezer. Because the freezer works great when you got nonstop power, but it doesn't work great as a cooler. That's why my goal is build this cooler that I just described and put ice in it to keep it frozen and use the freezer to freeze the ice. So if every day I'm able to freeze 8 gallons of water, that might be enough to keep my freezer cold and keep my things frozen. It'll be like a root cellar, pretty much. Even when I lived in a shed behind my aunt's, I'd use a bucket to get water out of the pond and bring it in to wash it. Nice. Yeah, that's cool. That's good living. Yep, I got enough trailers and stuff to start a homestead. I'm hoping to start using running water in April if this warm spring continues. What are you using now, Dead Wolf, for water? All right, well, we'll wait for his answer, and then I think I'll bring this to a close. So thanks everybody for your comments, and thanks for watching. Hope I at least gave you something good to think about. Pail of water. Oh. Huh. Cool. I didn't realize that. Do you use solar power, Dead Wolf? Or are you connected to power? Well, I also got to get out on my horses again today. I got to make that daily. So today's good day. I'm looking forward to it staying daylight until 7:30. That's exciting. So spring and St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner. So it's exciting times, folks. I love it. And then hot summer is right around the corner. But I'll be prepared this year. Okay, folks, have a great day. Enjoy your Sunday. Where's my end stream button? Oh, there it is. It's different here than it was yesterday for some reason. All right, remember, life's a lot more calm over on the creek side. Adios.